Hi, I'm Robert Hold, Senior Visual Designer in Research Teaching and Learning at UC Berkeley. Gosh, I've been in this role for almost 10 years. Maybe you're a designer too, or just tasked with designing your content. I want to share my design tips and experience to help you make the best decisions when you're creating legible and accessible content. I have a Bachelor of Fine Arts in Graphic Communication Design, and before I transitioned from the corporate world to academia, I worked as a magazine art director and a corporate retail marketing art director. And despite my extensive design experience, it wasn't until I joined UC Berkeley that I first encountered the term accessibility. And I was responsible for ensuring our digital content met accessibility standards. We didn't have a list of best practices at that time. So I used my understanding of visual communication and my editorial design background to make the best decisions about creating legible and accessible content using color ratio, font choice, font sizes, text alignment, and line height. UC Berkeley now provides recommendations and best practices for creating accessible content, as do many other academic institutions. However, these can sometimes seem ambiguous and confusing. The common recommendation at most institutions are to use a sans serif font and follow the WCAG 2.1 AA color recommendations, which suggest a contrast ratio of 4.5 to 1 ratio or greater for regular text, which I think of as the body text, and a 3 to 1 ratio or greater for large text, which I think of as the headlines. My goal is always to have all my text be at least 4.5 to 1. I use the color contrast analyzer tool to check the color ratio, but numerous tools are available. I'm not going to get into the detail explaining color contrasts, but I do want to share a few examples of testing the color ratio using the color contrast analyzer tool. The information on the right side is the interface of the color contrast analyzer tool. On the left, the green text would be the foreground color, and the yellow box would be the background. The color ratio is 4.5 to 1, which exactly passes the WCAG recommendation for regular text or the body text. So that passes. Now we'll test the red text. It's 5.2 to 1, and that also passes above the 4.5 to 1. The higher the ratio, the more the contrast. Let's test the dark blue text. It's 13.6 to 1 ratio, which is even better and passes for all sizes of text. How do you make the best design decisions when creating accessible content? I always begin with the color palette. For a designer, color carries meaning, and color sets the tone of your content. When there are no photos or illustrations in your content, color can play a vital supporting role in your content's narrative. Using accessible colors was a challenge at the start of my accessibility journey. My early color palettes were dominated by dark shades like navy blue, burgundy, dark purple, forest green, and browns, like constant clouds hanging over my designs. Now, using all dark colors, whether it's white text on dark backgrounds or dark text on light backgrounds, isn't necessarily bad, but all my projects started to look the same and a bit gloomy. It took me a few years to fully grasp how to incorporate the bright colors I wanted while keeping them accessible. It felt like moving from dark clouds to sunshine. One effective technique I found useful, which allows you to incorporate bright colors, yellows or blues, is to use blocks or shapes of color behind text. For example, dark text on a yellow background instead of yellow text on a white background, or dark text on a blue background instead of blue text on a white background, or dark text on light colors instead of light colors on a white background, or white text on bright colors instead of bright colors on a white background. You get the idea. Be mindful of how you use these colors and color blocks and shapes. You don't want too much, and you want to keep your audience and objective in mind. Use the color blocks for structuring content, such as headlines, or for emphasizing words within the text. You want to keep your color palette simple. I usually limit it to 2 or 3 colors plus black. And I think about what color the text will be and what color other elements will be, and I test them out before finalizing a color palette. This upfront time will save you time in the long run, and you can save the palettes that work for future projects. Per WCAG 2.1a 1.4.1, avoid using red and green colors as the only way to convey meaning, unless you include text or symbols clarifying what the color means. These are samples of how some people with visual impairments view red and green. You'll also want to consider if you have a white background with dark text, or a light colored background with darker text, or a black or dark background with white text, or a colored background with light colored text. I haven't found a definitive answer to whether a white or dark background is better. However, I have found that using 100% black can be visually harsh, either as a text color or a background color. So I always make my black anywhere from 90 to 95% black, just softening it a bit. To summarize, you want to stick to a simple color palette, use tools like the Color Contrast Analyzer tool to check color ratio, and use boxes or shapes to get more color into your content. I hope this gives you ideas on how to create colorful, dynamic, and accessible content while still adhering to the WCAG guidelines. Thank you.